Okay, y'all, they got the Christopher Dorner dude. You can stop doing the apprehensive devil takes when you see me out and about. We don't look that much alike. Shoot, Bret Michaels looks even more like Lindsay Lohan than I look like Christopher Dorner.
I think what's happening. Propaganda.
Let's do this again. In short, virtually all politically motivated violence carried out in America is by left-wingers and Democrats. And just to prove the selective outrage of liberals, they'll forget about all the assaults of the Democrats, from the KKK to James Earl Ray, a Democrat who shot Dr. Martin Luther King, just to again remind y'all of how you liberals let Democrats get away with murder. Liberals zero in on the minor instances of, like, Timothy McVeigh, who, like Dorner, wanted to exact justice against the system. But Timothy McVeigh is labeled as a right-wing nut job, and Dorner is being made to be a rock star, a gun-blazing rock star, who flat out tells you what his political leanings are and who he subscribes to, including Piers Morgan. And typical of liberals, they just cover their ears and go, anyway, they hate guns, but they love guns for their ideals. And they love it when a person goes rogue or on a retribution binge like Jason Bourne or Django. Or they love gun-toting so-called revolutionaries like Che Guevara, who executed people for thinking differently. Their hypocrisy is always on full display. They talk about how they're against guns and violence, but they celebrate the promotion of violence more than anyone. And then they try to act like they're against violence when it happens. Look at Dr. Marc Lamont Hill, who has a PhD and teaches African American studies, which I guess means he has the credentials to write a prescription for crutches to blacks who really don't need them. Marc Lamont Hill is nuts. He's a brilliant nut, but that just makes him a shiny nut. He solicits applause for preaching about how white America needs to be more diverse, while saying that to a virtually all-black audience in a BET studio. All right. The dude is giddy over Christopher Dorner, while acting like he doesn't condone his actions.
And as far as Dorner himself goes, he's been like a real-life superhero to many people. Now, don't get me wrong, what he did was awful. Killing innocent people is bad. But when you read his manifesto, when you read the message that he left, he wasn't entirely crazy. He had a plan and a mission here, and many people aren't rooting for him to kill innocent people. They're rooting for somebody who was wronged to get a kind of revenge against the system. It's almost like watching Django Unchained in real life. It's kind of exciting.
The subject of police brutality gets brought up. Police brutality is nothing compared to the brutality blacks exact upon each other. The black community does have the highest crime rate against itself. And in gangs, lots of kids end up in them, not just because they're looking to join one, but because they're made to. And when you got gangs that do drive-bys, even if they know that kids could get hurt, I think the outrage over brutality is very misplaced. And then Marc Lamont Hill looks upon Dorner as a real-life Django? Wow. It's bad enough that Django Unchained was made partially because supposedly the black community doesn't have any black heroes in history, I guess. We don't need a fiction writer to fabricate a hero for us. We have real live heroes in our history. What about Bass Reeves, Frederick Douglass, the Tuskegee Airmen, the 54th Regiment, Harriet Tubman, Crispus Attucks, the Red Ball Express? And trust me, I know there's a lot that I'm leaving out. You can say that I'm a descendant of a real life Django. According to my family story, my great-great-great-grandfather killed his so-called master, and as a fugitive, changed his last name to Rachel. I'm still not sure as to how or why Rachel became the name. I'm still researching. The story was preserved with my great-grandmother, whom was over 100 years old and passed away somewhere between 112 and 115 around 1995. Can't totally say for sure about her age because the details of her date of birth around the 1880s were a little shoddy. But my Triple G grandfather was forced to be a slave. Dorner wasn't forced to be a cop. Triple G Grampy had his liberty taken away from him without due process. Dorner wasn't sentenced into a life of servitude of law enforcement. So Marc Hill's comparison was humorous, and I'm sure it tickled him as being an interesting comparison, but in reality, it's not a fitting one. I'm AlfonZo Rachel with ZoNation, and to my Republican compatriots, the liberals continue to serve up a buffet of hypocrisy, from racism to sexism to gun violence. They're handing you over a dump truck full of earth to bury them with. What are you gonna do? But that just makes him a shiny nut.